Islands are fun for science. Isolated from the mainland, the organisms on islands aren't subject to all the messy things that happen in the rest of the world. They are, in a way, nature's laboratories, and at that, some of our best laboratories. It was after scrutinizing the Galapagos finches that Charles Darwin further constructed the theory of evolution. Incidents like those are countless on the many islands of Earth, but one of these accidental laboratories houses an incredible story concerning populations. And like all good stories, it starts with interference from the United States federal government. Us Americans were dealing with a lot of stuff. Outside the total scope of this story, we were in a world war, too.
Say that again?
Ships were on the seas, and those ships needed help. The solution is a bunch of long-range navigation stations that assisted the ships via radio. These were set up wherever the Navy needed them, including in some pretty inhospitable environments. The setting of our story, St. Matthew Island, is one of these inhospitable places. Situated in the Bering Sea between Alaska and the Russian Far East, the island is located 200 miles away from the nearest Alaskan village. It is small, a long strip shaped like a thingamabob, about 34 miles long and 5 miles wide. Being located right by Alaska should give it away, but it's not your usual deserted tropical island. It is a barren, bleak place composed of cliffs and tundras. If you're still interested in an island vacation to St. Matthew, some sites are a lake in the north, affectionately called North Lake. There's another lake in the south, appropriately termed Big Lake. Yeah, that's it. Sounds like an electric place to work, said definitely 19 men tasked to live on St. Matthew Island. Don't worry, they were well accommodated. Say, what do you think 19 men 200 miles away from any other human contact want more than anything else? Why, of course, the warm, tender sensation of reindeer venison. Yes, alongside these 19 men were released onto the island 29 reindeer, 25 females and 4 males, as a backup food supply. The reindeer, or as their wild variant is called in North America, caribou, were, despite this purpose, probably enjoying their lives a lot more than the humans. The only other vertebrates on the island were voles, small birds, and Arctic foxes. Absent were the mainland predators that preyed on reindeer adults and young, like eagles, bears, and wolves. As well, St. Matthew was absolutely carpeted with the reindeer's favorite food, lichen. Yes, as unappealing as lichen looks to you and me, and literally every other large mammal in the world, reindeer have evolved to metabolize and thrive off of it. It's how they are so successful in the barren northern tundras of our planet. They subsist off the lichen in winter times whilst other plants die off. And St. Matthew sported layers of lichen, in some cases 12 centimeters thick. So with their favorite food literally blanketing the island, and the only potential predators being those men at the station who... What was that? Oh, the station was abandoned shortly after. So scratch that. With 0 potential predators, I wonder what will happen to their population. Well, 13 years have passed. How has this population of 29 reindeer fared? Unsurprisingly, they multiplied, but by how much? 100%? 500%? 1,000%? How about 4,655%? Going from 29 reindeer to 1,350. To approach this number, those initial reindeer had to be reproducing at the theoretical maximum for the first few years. Maybe most impressive is that reindeer almost always birth one calf at a time. So to be reaching the numbers on St. Matthew in 1957, every female was probably reproducing for the first couple years. Actual reproduction rate is impossible to pinpoint exactly, but the outcome in 1957 shows an incredibly healthy, fast-growing population. The ratio combined of reindeer calves and yearlings, which are reindeers just over 1 year in age, was 135 per 100 adult females. As well, the individual reindeer looked extraordinarily healthy. Most were in excellent shape, as well as large, both in weight, but even their skeletal dimensions had increased. They were not only in better health than the average wild reindeer, but their weight exceeded that of domestic reindeer by about 50%. These wild reindeer were growing larger and healthier than those managed by humans with the sole goal of getting them large and healthy. With a population essentially compromised of the LeBron James of reindeer, with signs of it only growing larger, things looked like reindeer heaven on St. Matthew Island. There were some subtle worrying signs. The reindeer had begun to trample and overgraze certain pastures of lichen on the island, but there were still plenty of lichen to go around. Don't rain on their parade. Or snow. Get it? 'Cause it's cold. 6 years have passed. In the summer of 1963, the reindeer on this puny island have multiplied from 1,350 to 6,000. Density of reindeer had increased to 46.9 per square mile on the island. Initially, this sheer magnitude of reindeer points to St. Matthew still being paradise. But looking just a little closer, and there are telltale signs things were not as good as they seemed. For one, the weights and dimensions of the reindeer had decreased. They were now around as heavy as their domestic counterparts, so still in great shape, just not as great. As well, the ratio of young reindeer had decreased. They had fallen to 76 young and yearlings per 100 adult females. So reproduction rate had gone down as well, a significant sign that these reindeer were under conditions of scarcer resources. Summer grazing areas of grassland and sedges had remained relatively well off in 1963, but it was the winter feeding areas that alarmed scientists. The areas of lichen the reindeer had grazed on had been overgrazed, and along with that, trampled under thousands of sets of hooves. These desiccated pieces of lichen were then blown away by the island's winds. With lichen depleted, reindeer turned to willows, which by 1963 were also showing signs of being overbrowsed. So it looked like the island was ripe for this rampant population of reindeer to stop growing, and even drop. But hey, how bad could it be? Signs looked troubling when an aircraft was flown over the island in the late winter of 1964 to check on the reindeer population. Flying conditions were unfriendly, accurate observations were scrapped, but still, this checkup on a reindeer population of thousands spotted exactly 0. In August of 1965, hunters, probably moved to hunt by the rumor of reindeer El Dorado, landed on St. Matthew, only to anxiously search a barren island. The ground was littered with the clean, bleached skeletons of reindeer, and only a couple dozen live reindeer remained. When scientists finally investigated in 1966, they found the same thing. Skeletons upon skeletons of reindeer, obviously dead for a while, picked clean and moss growing on them. The population of 6,000 had plummeted to 42 individuals. Of these, all were individuals which were alive the last time the scientists had checked the island in 1963. All but one was female, and none of these females were even impregnated since 1963. So what happened? Obviously, a drop was expected, but to go from 6,000 to almost nothing is astonishing. Clearly, the elimination of the reindeer's valuable winter food sources is to blame. Their population just became far too unsustainable for the little island. But perhaps some bad luck is also to blame for the level of destruction. From the evidence gathered from the skeletons, it seems the die-off occurred all at once, and quite a time before 1966. Along with this, the winter of 1963 was considered very severe in the Bering Sea. It is therefore very likely the reindeer of St. Matthew, already dealing with scarcer winter forage, faced a brutal winter, burying and destroying any possible food under an impenetrable layer of snow and ice. Thousands starved to death over the winter months. Another odd mystery is the lack of any reproduction after this die-off, and the strange ratio of males to females. The reindeer that remained were actually in better shape than their 1963 counterparts, probably owing to reduced competition for food, so it wasn't like the females were too weak to reproduce. This ordeal is potentially explained by the fact that reproductively active males experienced more stressed lives and higher mortality under strenuous condition. Thus, a slightly higher number of males died than females, leaving just one remaining male. Despite the fact he was surrounded by nothing but 41 females, his relatively less healthy weight and antler size indicate he was not able to reproduce. Loser. So yeah, that's St. Matthew Island, one of the great accidental population experiments in biology. That last male, by the way, was killed by the scientists and collected for study, probably to understand how he fumbled so hard. With no reproduction possible, the remaining reindeer on the island dwindled over the ensuing decades. The reign of the reindeer had come to an end. Now, once more, St. Matthew Island was home only to the voles, birds, and foxes. Hello, and thank you for staying to the end of this shorter video. It was kind of a spooky episode, to fit the time of the year, kinda. Maybe just macabre, whatever. Thanks for Dara Hughes for his wonderful music tracks. Thanks to the video and images I use for editing purposes. Of course, thank you for watching. See ya!